You let us know.
Everything ready?
Yep. And we've got somebody who's introducing us.
Yeah.
Oh,
Hello.
I didn't
Yeah.
realize. I thought it was somebody else
Oh,
introducing me.
Yeah.
That's
No, I
fine.
got you.
Okay.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us at Politics and Prose at Union Market. I'm Alan Watke, Deputy Director Events Coordinator at Politics and Prose. I want to welcome you back to our first month of events at Politics and Prose since March 2020. It's so nice to have people gathered together again. For a full list of everything we have confirmed, you can go to our website, politics-prose.com, and check out our events calendar. Before we get started, I want to make sure that you all have your phones silenced. We are live streaming this, so, you know, be nice not to have the little chirps and sounds. And then, in lieu of a regular Q&A, because of COVID protocols, we're asking that you write your questions on note cards, and I'll collect those before it's time for the Q&A to have Mia read. And also, in light of COVID, we're asking that you not approach the authors or moderator and ask for personalizations or, longer chit chat or things like that. But yeah, so thank you. So now, without further ado, I'm excited to welcome to Politics and Prose Taj McCoy for the launch of her debut novel, Savvy Sheldon Feels Good as Hell. Yeah. Taj is an Oakland native and attorney committed to writing stories championing black and biracial women of color, plus-size protagonists and characters with a strong sense of sisterhood and familial bonds. When she's not writing, she may be on Twitter, boosting other marginalized writers, trying to zen out in yoga, sharing recipes on her website, or cooking private supper club meals for close friends. She'll be in conversation today with Mia Sosa, a USA Today best-selling and award-winning author who writes funny, flirty, and moderately steamy contemporary romances that celebrate our multiracial world. Booklist calls her the new go-to author for fans of sassy and sexy contemporary romances, and Entertainment Weekly described The Worst Best Man as rom-com perfection. So, without further ado, please welcome to Politics and Prose, Taj McCoy and Mia Sosa.
Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. I am super excited to help Taj celebrate Savvy Sheldon. She's here. I'm so excited. I read this book early on and just thought it was so wonderful on so many levels. Kind of the secondary characters, savvy, it's just a wonderful story, and it's a wonderful journey. And I hope if you haven't read it, that you love it as much as I did, and as much as I'm sure Taj does. So I'm just going to start with, this is your debut.
It is.
You are now a published author.
Yeah.
Can we just take a moment to sit with that and really take it in and enjoy it, and tell us how you feel?
Emotions. So many emotions. This has been, I posted something earlier today. It's a picture of me at 11 years old in a newspaper. And I'm holding this book where I had just been published. I had a short story published in 5th grade. And I wrote that at 10 years old. And I have been trying to be a professional writer ever since. And so this is a 30-year journey to get to this point. And I'm very proud. I'm very close to tears, so we're not going to do that. But it's been a journey. There's been a lot of detours. But the second that I found my way to Savvy's story, it's like everything started to fall into place. From finishing the story to getting an incredible agent to landing the deal, and now to being here in front of you all. It's just started to work, and I'm really excited. Yeah.
Okay, so Taj just said she's not going to cry. We'll see how that goes tonight.
Shucks.
Okay, so you've described Savvy Sheldon, this story, as something new.
Yes.
The motion picture, which some of you may have seen, starring Sanaa Lathan.
Yes.
I love her.
Yes.
Meets Black Girl Magic.
Yes.
Tell us about those connections.
You know, it's funny because Savvy has changed dramatically since I initially wrote the story. It changed into something new. It was originally more like an Eat, Pray, Love. And, you know, Savvy goes through this terrible breakup in the beginning of the story, and she finds her way and she finds her love. But before, it was really just about that journey to finding her love for herself. And in changing it to incorporate the rom-com kind of genre, which is really more my brand, we embrace something new because there's just something so sexy and steamy and gratifying about that movie. But there's also, you know, those things that people love about the whole like HGTV world. And so I tried to incorporate bits and pieces of all of those things while still making sure that I was highlighting Black love, that I was highlighting self-love, self-care, that I was highlighting how to come back and bounce back stronger when you have your confidence shaken. And that's something that Savvy goes through at the very beginning of the story. And if you're not familiar with it, you'll see. So I don't want to ruin that part for you.
Okay, I am sure that no one here needs to be convinced as to why they want to pick up this book. But for those people who may not have purchased it yet, who may be watching virtually, tell us why should you pick up this book?
Yeah.
And what's basically your elevator pitch for this story?
Okay. Well, Savvy is a plus-size sweetheart who goes through a terrible breakup, and on the other side, she finds not only love for herself, but love with someone else that is beyond what she could have imagined for herself. In the midst of this story, you have her supported by this band of hilarious, ridiculous, feisty best friends, and then you have this dream guy who is just a great guy. And people wanted me to make him a little more rough around the edges, and I was like, you know what? Great guys exist. You know, like, let's let that be a thing. We don't need toxic masculinity. We don't need any of that for this particular story. Savvy deserves, and so we're going to give her what she deserves. And so it's really about her finding her way and accepting that she deserves all those things.
So wonderful. And I love the nod to not requiring toxic masculinity.
Thank
It
you.
is, it's such a wonderful thing, I think, in romance today, that we're seeing more and more of that. Just men, and, you know, there's this cinnamon roll
Right.
term that people
Yes.
have, someone has coined, and I can't remember quite whom, but it's a wonderful thing, and I think it is definitely something that you see in Spencer.
Yeah.
And he completely fits that mold, and we want to see more of that.
More,
Right.
yes.
So, Savvy's journey touches on issues of body positivity and fat phobia. And these are issues that need to be addressed with care, obviously.
Yeah.
And I think you did so wonderfully.
Thank
so, tell me, how did you approach that task?
Yeah.
Were you nervous? How did you kind of get over those nerves, if you were,
Yeah.
to get where you needed to go?
I'm still nervous. I'm not going to lie to you. But yes, you know, Savvy was actually born from me going through a bad breakup. And it was really me dealing with a relationship where there were all these conditions on me and my body for us to stay together. And coming out of that relationship, I had to really refocus and recenter and decide what I was worthy of, because I had slowly been conditioned to think that I wasn't worth it. And so for me, writing Savvy was very cathartic because Savvy was getting all the things that I was telling myself that I deserve. So yeah. I know, right?
So, she said she wasn't going to cry. Now I'm worried that
trying
maybe
not
I'm
to,
going to
y'all.
be the one ending up crying here, and I don't want to do that. Okay. Spencer.
Yes.
Spencer.
Yes.
Spencer. Boyfriend material, book boyfriend material for sure.
Yes.
How did you conceive of him? What were you trying to achieve?
Yeah.
And I mean, I know what I have my sense of what you achieved with him. But what were you going for? And did he change over the course of your journey to getting there?
He actually did change a little bit. You know, he was a little rougher in early days. He was a little less. He was a little wordier before, and I was like, you know, like he sounds a little bit too much like me, so maybe we should dial that back a little bit. But you know, like what I love about Spencer is he reminds me so much of a lot of my guy friends. I have a lot of guy friends. If you know me, you know that somehow inside I'm slightly more like a 65-year-old man. I love my bourbon, I love my scotch, I love my cigars, and so I just like to hang out with the crew and enjoy myself. But I have been able to amass for myself this great circle of friends, and you know, just great guys that I see all the time. And to me, like, it's so crazy because all of them are just good, pure people. There's nothing really toxic about a lot of them. I mean, there's some, you know, but but for the most part, you know, like they're some of my favorite people. Right. And so I took several of them and fused them together and made Spencer.
Got it. I don't know if you've watched Grand Crew.
No, I haven't, but I keep hearing about it.
I feel like Spencer would fit into that group. So if you read that book. So
okay.
Now I want you to watch at least one episode
and
see if you think that's accurate. But I try to visualize where characters would fit.
Yeah.
And for some reason, I see Spencer being in that friend group. It's a really good show.
Okay.
Okay, let's talk about food.
Yes.
In this book.
Let's.
Oxtail.
Oxtails, yes.
Tiramisu. Okay. At one point,
yes,
there's like this herb roasted salmon, and I think Jason gets it. And I was
Jason
like,
gets that.
He doesn't deserve it.
He didn't.
It sounded so good with the roasted Brussels sprouts, and I was drawn in. So if you, I mean, I was very hungry reading this.
Yes.
And you will be too.
Yes.
But it is clear to me that there is a true understanding of food and cooking.
Yes.
And there is a love of food, and cooking is a love language.
Very much.
In this story. So where does that come from?
Yeah.
Is that true to your own life? Tell us a little bit about that.
Cooking is my love language. It is how I express to people that I care. And I have been in love with cooking. I remember following my mom around the kitchen at like 9 or 11, and my parents both had really kind of rough jobs. And so when I got into high school, my mom was like, your turn, you know what you're doing. And so from 14 on, I actually did a lot of the cooking for my entire family. And once I got into law school, I actually became a private chef and cooked for some NBA players. I have hosted quite a few supper clubs at my home. There are a couple of people in this room that have been able to come to my place and enjoy a meal. I just want to feed people. When I was in law school, I used to have classmates come over just to make sure that they had a home-cooked meal. When I was the director of admissions at different law schools, I would have students over to make sure they had a home-cooked meal. It's important to me that people feel that love and are cared for in that way. And it's very much, I think, something that I gained from my grandmother, because she was always that one. You know, it didn't matter if you were coming over to visit from dinner. She was going to make sure a feast was on the table. You were going to eat something while you were there. And so, like, it's just a part of who I am. And, you know, like, the story, you do need snacks to read this story. There is food on the very first page, and pretty much throughout, you're gonna read a lot of different things. But it was folded into Savvy that's a part of her love language too. And so it's how she shows her friends, it's how she takes care of her uncle, it's how she, you know, kind of in some ways seduces Spencer without even meaning to. Mm-hmm. And so it's definitely something that I think, you know, it brings families and people closer. And I think there's nothing that shows love more than being willing and able to sit down together for a meal.
All right, so turning to a little bit
Uh-oh.
of a tougher topic.
Okay.
Jason,
yes.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so let's be clear.
Mm-hmm.
He's awful.
He's awful.
Okay.
Yes.
No one should love him.
No one.
I'm just telling you.
Not even his mama.
Spoiler alert. Exactly. But what I love about this story is that despite him being sort of front and center for obvious reasons, Savvy is surrounded by other people who are a complete counteract to him. Mm-hmm. And you've got her uncle, her mother, all of her friends, Spencer. That world that you created with all of these secondary characters that is so full and has so much depth and just feels like this is a person who is loved. Yeah. It is something to behold, to read. Quite honestly, I was just like, Jason was so bad that I was like, she has to have people who love her, and she does. Yes. Tell me about creating that world. Tell me about the dichotomy and kind of how you approached that and what you wanted to do in addressing sort of Jason and the way she interacted with him versus everybody else in her life.
You know, I thought about that relationship that I went through and what would have made it easier for me to have like a faster bounce back, to have like a way for me to manage and not have gone through maybe as long of a tough period as I did. You know, for Savvy, you know, over the course of a few months, you know, her confidence is shaken, and then she's able to bounce back. It took me years. And so I think in my mind, I was like, okay, let me create a world where, you know, Savvy has the family structure, but she also has these friends and then new people that come into her life that immediately are like, we must protect Savvy. You know, she's just so sweet. She's not crazy gullible, but you can tell she's going through something. And so people just gravitate toward her, and they're just like, you know what? We need to make sure she's okay. And I think that, you know, having her be the way that she is, and then having him be so polarizing, he's such an asshole. and you're just like, I literally have people DMing me today, like, I fucking hate that guy. You know, and you're just like, sorry, you guys, I didn't mean to do it that way. But you know, like, I had to show what it can be like. And frankly, I've experienced worse, you know, and so to see that on the page and to see how it plays out and to see what he has the nerve to say to her in her home, it's something to behold. And so, like, I had to show that roughness to also show why she gets as vulnerable as she does, how her confidence is shaken the way that it is, so that she can be built back up, so that she can have that full arc of development.
So I will tell you that as a reader, when these negative things are happening to her, you know, it's instinctive. If you're an empathetic person, you want her to feel better. You want to kind of wrap yourself around her and protect her and hug her. And I think what you did, that I thought you did so beautifully, is I put myself in the position of all of those people that are in her life, right? Because then it made it easier for me to deal with Jason, right? And knowing that Jason is not just Jason, but is also a symbol of the people who would say those things to her.
That's right.
Who would mistreat her in a way that she obviously does not deserve to be treated. So I think that that's craft too. Right? That's you thinking about that.
Building those people, and it's funny because part of it was intentional, and then part of it just kind of, it just worked without me actually really strategizing it, because, you know, Cotter is the true empath. You know, you can tell she wears her heart on her sleeve. She is very much like, you know, like, whatever you need, I'm there. Maggie will cut somebody. And so you just have to have those friends, you know, like when Savvy goes to the beauty shop, and it's such a fun scene, and I love that scene so much, but there's this one woman, and she's like, he said what? I just want to talk to him.
Right.
And you know, like, you know what that means, but it's at the same time, it's just like, you know, these are folks that Savvy sees maybe once every 2 months, but they feel like they have to protect her. You know, the uncle was like, that dude wasn't worth nothing from the beginning. And she's like, well, why didn't you tell me? You know, you know, family is never going to tell you right away, but they want you to figure it out for yourself. But at the same time, it's just like, wow, y'all, thanks for not letting me know what was going on there. You know, and so just kind of creating this dynamic that felt really real to me. Like, you know, like, you have those friends, you have some of them that are super cutthroat like Maggie, you have those ones that are super empathetic, you have those ones that you meet along the way, and they're kind of somewhere in between, but they listen. And I think that part's really important too. And then you have the family, and the mom is like, well, whatever, just keep pushing because you're focused on some other things anyway. So what does this guy even matter in the grand scheme of things? And so, like, it just ended up working. I had maybe 2 characters that I had to cut out over the course of things, and so there were more people that were rallied around Savvy, and we had to pare down a little bit, but I hope to be able to introduce them in the future.
Nice.
Yeah.
And I think it's a testament to your writing that nothing feels missing.
Oh, thank you.
So, you know, where are those characters?
Right.
I want to see another version.
Yeah.
Okay. So sometimes in a romance, it is all about kind of that journey, kind of the 2 people or 3 people or whatever is at issue, coming together and finding their way to each other. But Savvy has a lot going on.
She does.
Right? And it's not just about Spencer.
That's right.
It is about work issues. It's about her relationship with her mom.
Yeah.
It's, you know, dealing with even the house that her grandparents have. And so tell me about that, the kind of structure around her and the things that she's dealing with as part of her journey that have nothing to do with Spencer, but why they're important to kind of where she ends up getting.
Yeah. Those were all things that were a part of the original. And I felt like, you know, for Savvy, it made her more realistic to have kind of those complex things going on, where it's like, you know, like, yeah, we're going through a breakup. Yeah, we're meeting someone new. But at work, this is going on. At home, this is going on. In family, this is going on. Because that just rounds everything out. You know, so Savvy is gunning for this promotion because her mom pushes and pushes and pushes. And, you know, like, she just wants her to keep building up that corporate ladder because Savvy is single and she doesn't want her to ever have to rely on a man, and that's her mom's hang up, right? And so like she's dealing with that, and then she's dealing with the fact that she lives in a house that she inherited from her grandparents, and it needs some updating, and it's something she's been putting off, but she needs to do that for herself. And so people keep pushing her to do it because she never does anything for herself. Then there's her uncle who lives in their grandparents' big house, and that thing is falling apart around him. But Savvy and Uncle, they just can't let it go because it's all of their memories. It's them basically feeling like they grew up together. And Uncle is actually based off of one of my uncles whom I grew up with. And we have that kind of relationship where it's, just all of these memories and all of these things that we want to be able to hold on to tangibly. And sometimes you can't. And so you see that happen throughout the course of the story as well. But it's just, trying to make sure that Savvy isn't just one-dimensional. And I felt like if it was just about her and Jason and Spencer, it would be.
All right. Now, this may be fun.
Okay.
Do you have a favorite scene? And if so, what is it?
I have several.
Okay.
If we're talking PG, one of my favorite scenes. Yeah, guys, there's some seats here. If we're talking PG, I think one of my absolute favorite scenes is where Savvy and the girls are on the tennis courts. Mm-hmm. And Savvy is trying to like hype Cotter up because she is hitting on the tennis instructor. And, like Cotter takes a ball to the face. And it's funny. But they're making fun of her. They're trying to give her ice. They're also talking about the chemistry, even though both people happen to be standing right there, which is awkward for Cotter. And then Maggie is sitting there like shoving down a bacon-wrapped hot dog because why not? And so but it's so LA to do that. And so, it's one of my favorite scenes because it's just the girls, just hanging out, having a good time. My favorite not PG scene?
Yes.
Is probably, oh man, I have to choose. It's probably the first love scene. Mm-hmm. And it's just because you can see that there's such a huge difference in the way that Spencer feels about Savvy's body versus Jason. And, I think that helps her bring all of her walls down so that she really can, open herself up to someone new in more ways than one. But also to like really, feel confident in herself when she's with him, no matter what she's wearing or not wearing. And I think that's beautiful.
So I'm just going to note that, one of the things that's really interesting when you read an early version of a story is you don't necessarily know kind of whether it's high heat, low heat, unless you know the author, right?
Right.
And so since this was Taj's debut and she asked me to read it, I was kind of course, would love to. But I didn't know anything about, what I would find. And then as I was reading, I was like, oh, okay. Oh, okay. Yeah. So I was pleasantly surprised. I'll just say that. And I think most people will be too.
Yeah. That first scene is the first sex scene I've ever written in my life. Yeah.
Wow.
I wrote that in public. I would not recommend. But yeah, like it actually, that was a journey for me because I was super nervous about it. And I wasn't sure how people were going to receive it. And, for rom-coms, I was like, okay, well, are you allowed to say the things or are you not? Like, what are the rules? And I was like, well, I'm just going to go for it. And I think it ended up working out better that I just ignored all of the questions in my head and just did it.
And just wrote it.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it.
Oh, thank you. All right, then.
Okay, so like me, you have a law degree.
Yes.
Do you have a theory as to why there are so many romance authors who have law degrees?
I think a lot of us gravitate towards law because we know that there's a lot of reading and writing involved. And I think that it's so funny, like the first novel that I attempted, the first several that I attempted were in law school. And I think for some of us, a lot of us had the thought that we were going to be writers someday. And, you know, somewhere down the line, as we're either going through school or after school, we just say, you know what, I'm just going to do it. But it's crazy how many of us there are that have this particular degree and go specifically into writing.
Right.
I find it to be really interesting. And now that, you know, the book is out, there are so many people that I went to law school with or that I have worked in law school administration with who reach out to me and they're like, I've always wanted to do what you're doing.
Yeah.
And they're trying to get on that path now. And it's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. Okay, so now that you're a published author,
Yeah.
do you have any advice for someone who would like to walk in your footsteps someday?
I think the very best advice that I can give is, you know, for the people that offer advice, some are going to offer a lot of advice, and you have to really discern the advice that you're receiving. You know, some of it's going to resonate with you, and some of it's not, and you have to decide, you know, what it is that you're going to accept and what you're not. Early on, I was receiving a lot of advice from a lot of different directions, and it started to make me kind of doubt myself and made me wonder if I could really hack it. And so for me, I had to kind of close myself off to the noise for a little while and then kind of slowly build back in who I was listening to and who I wasn't. I think, you know, specifically for writers of color, I would say it's going to feel like you're hitting ceilings all the time. It's going to feel like there are different gatekeepers at every level because there are. Expect it. It doesn't mean you have to accept it. So keep pushing and make sure that you let people know what it is that you're after, what your goals are. You know, so whether you're talking about your cover or your title or a very specific thing in the content of your book, make sure that you don't allow yourself to cut out those things that mean something to you. You know, there are things that we put in there specifically because we know that those of us who are the same are going to understand. And I would never want to cut that out because I'm trying to please someone else who doesn't get it. Instead, I'm just going to set that and keep it in there. Because I think it's so important, especially now that we're starting to see representation increase. I have a concern that we're going to see that gate start to close because folks are going to think, oh, well, we have enough now. And I want us to try to put our feet in those doors and keep that door open for as many as we can, because I feel like there should be ample room for all of us at the table, not just one of each. This isn't Noah's Ark, it's not 2 by 2.
Right.
Okay? Like, we can all be there, and I think that's important.
That's great. So what can we look forward to reading from you next?
Yes, well, it's still going through some title change.
Okay.
But my second book will be out around this time next year, and it's another rom-com. It's a standalone, so it's not related to Savvy. It's actually, ironically, we're sitting in a bookstore. It's a bookstore romance. The main character owns an independent bookstore, and she has a crush on an author that comes for a signing. And she ends up dating not only that author, but his best friend. And so it's a little bit of a love triangle. And there's actually a little bit of a mystery in the center of the story as well.
Oh.
Yeah.
Speaking of titles,
Yes.
tell us about the title of this book and how it came about. Was this sort of always the title?
It was
or?
not.
Okay.
It was not. This book has been through some iterations. Originally, it was Just As You Are. When I signed with my agent and we sold it, it was The Blueprint. It was Savvy Sheldon's Feeling Good as Hell. And then we went through a spreadsheet of 90 plus titles as we're going around and around with the imprint and with the sales team. And so we landed on Savvy Sheldon Feels Good as Hell. But it was a journey.
Wow.
Yeah.
That spreadsheet, I tell you.
Oh my goodness, the
happens for
spreadsheets.
every book.
Right?
All right, so
Truly.
I have some questions from the audience because I am done with my perfectly lemonaded that worked out very well questions. So I am going to go ahead and ask some of these.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Somebody says love you. And the question is, what's your favorite dish in Savvy?
Ooh. So there's so much food in this book, you guys. But my absolute favorite thing in the book is the oxtail dish. And it's because it has a history in my family. When I was a kid, there was this really, really great Chinese restaurant that we used to go to every couple weeks with my grandma and my mom and my sister. And they had this oxtail dish on their menu. And it was so good. But by the time I got out of high school, they had closed. And my mom and I, we loved that dish, and I used to try to recreate it. I spent 15 years trying to recreate this dish until I finally got it to where it tasted just like it did at that restaurant 15 years ago. And so it's because it's been such a labor of love, and because I know when I make it, it's gonna be good. It's got to be my favorite thing in there.
Okay.
Yeah.
You have a unique view into the minds of men via your real-life friendships. How did that impact your depiction of characters like Jason and Spencer? How do you think this differs, if at all, from other authors in the genre?
Excellent question. Yes, I know that you asked that.
This is long.
I love it. She has. She's eaten all the things. You've had the lamb too. Let's see. You know, the funny thing is, in thinking about all of our guy friends and thinking about, a lot of them are mutual, but also thinking about, you know, how I tailored Jason and Spencer. Jason was tailored off of several exes mixed together. That's why he's such an asshole. And then, you know, Spencer really was tailored out of like the best of the guys. And so to me, like it was such an easy dichotomy to make because, you know, when you've dated someone really, really terrible / toxic / just, you know, like it's so easy to kind of see how different they are in how they treat people, in how they talk to you, in what they value, versus these other folks on the other side who really, you know, show you who they are in their actions, in what they say, what they do, how they treat their family. You can see it. It's so crystal clear. And I think I wanted to make that really clear with Jason, even though he has a dog and he goes and he checks on his mom and whatever, right? Like, like at the end of the day, you could tell like even his mom thought he was a little special because she didn't really value him at work. Like, it was just the things, and it was important for me to kind of show, with Spencer, he sacrificed something to help his family. And he, like, made sure, like, well, I know that you're going through all these different things. I'm not going to charge you some crazy rate when I'm coming here to do your renovations or whatever. Like, there were things that you could tell, like, one has clearly talked to many people and one shouldn't talk to people. Right. Right? Like, it was just easy for me to make that dichotomy. And I think it's important, to know, like, kind of where along the spectrum you fall and what you're attracting. And so that's why I made them that way. Yeah.
Okay. In the book, what does the house represent? Why is Savvy reluctant to revamp it?
This must mean the house she lives in and not her grandparents' house where Uncle lives. I think it's less that she's reluctant, and I think she just sees herself as too busy. She's so focused on work and so focused on this promotion, and at first she's super focused on Jason, and then, all of that kind of goes to hell. And so the only reason why she finally gives in on the house is because she realizes her mother is harassing the contractor. And so she's kind of got to put a stop to that in some way. And so she finally agrees to move forward. And I think it was just her perception of time. She was putting in all kinds of extra hours, taking on extra projects for other people at work, doing all the things that you're supposed to do to be seen by the boss so that you can get this great promotion. And so in her mind, she's like, I don't have time to have somebody up in my house and doing all this stuff and making noise and whatever else, and so I think that was the main thing. It wasn't that she didn't want to. I think there was also, this familiarity with the house being the way that it was. She grew up in that house. And so even though, one of the cabinets was off the hinges and the refrigerator makes that funny noise, it was comfortable. And so she didn't feel like she needed to rush.
Oh, this is a good one.
Uh-oh.
How did you find your agents?
Oh, that is a good question. When I was first starting out, Twitter has been truly the thing that has taught me so much about the publishing industry, about pitching agents, about querying, about, just how all this stuff works. About beat. I didn't know what a beat was. What are beats? Why? Why do we do this? All that stuff. I learned all that stuff on Twitter. And the writing community really taught me about DV Pit, which is diverse voices pitching. It taught me about querying agents and what that means and what a query letter should look like. It taught me about how to research agents, what a schmagent was, and all those things in between. And so it was 2018 when I finished writing Savvy and edited it and was ready to start pitching. 2018, yeah. And, I jumped into DV Pit and did that, was not successful, and realized that I had probably pitched too early. And I think a lot of people do, and you just don't know. And so I went through about 6 months of revisions and tried again. And the next time I tried, I was getting all kinds of full requests and things. But I also changed something. I decided to cold query at the same time. And I had done a ton of research on agents that followed the genres that I knew I wanted to write in. And I had been looking for people who I would genuinely connect with, and I really wanted someone that felt like a partner. And so I kind of, I ended up connecting with my agent at the time, who was Veronica Park, and she's phenomenal. I love her to pieces. Hi, V, I know you're watching. We connected, ironically, through like a random like hashtag event that was called Be My Love Interest. And we were talking about some really hot guy and bonding, and she thought it was badass that I actually like tagged him in it. And I was like, you got to shoot your shot. So, the great thing about that was, that interaction caused her to kind of look through her slush pile, and she found me, and she read my query. She immediately requested a full, and then like 24 hours later, she requested a phone call. She read through it that fast. And it was just kismet, it just worked out. And so I actually just recently switched to a new agent, and that process has been a little bit different because I have been repped and I do have a book deal now. And so this time around, I reached out to just a small few, and folks that I thought I would partner well with, folks that I knew would understand my goals and my career trajectory in terms of at least how I see it. Now I'm with Jem over at Andrea Brown, and I'm really, really happy. And so it's just a matter of especially like doing the research. I can't stress that part enough. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so one of the things that I think is similar between us is that we think it's very important to, as you mentioned before, sort of hold that gate open for other people.
I've been coming behind you.
And supporting folks and wanting to really make sure that it isn't just about us, but it's about other people getting opportunities and other people getting their names out there.
Yes.
So tell me about the other women of color authors who you love, who you think other people should be reading.
Okay.
I know that you could probably do this for 20 minutes.
I could.
But give me sort of your short list so that we can share the love with those people.
That I can do. One happens to be in this room. Her name is Lane Clark. She's standing towards the back there, holding her little Starbucks. That's right. Her book, Love Times Infinity, comes out on July 26, 2022. You need this book. It's YA, it's contemporary, it's important. Her writing is pristine, and I mean it. She is such an incredible person, not only just in the writing community, but we've become very fast friends and faster family, and I'm really, really blessed to have her in my life. I would say Catherine Adele West, her new book, The Two Lives of Sarah, which is the prequel to Saving Ruby King.
That cover.
Ooh, that cover, honey.
Ooh, look the cover up if you haven't seen it.
It's The Two Lives of Sarah.
And that's a title change.
That is
right?
a title change,
yeah.
yes.
I've been watching, paying attention.
Yes.
But that cover is
Kathy's
fantastic.
writing is amazing. Kathy is a pillar in the writing community as well. I would say definitely, keep your eyes on Ayanna Gray. Keep your eyes on, oh my God, there's just so many. There are so many. Danielle Jackson, Natalie Kanya, Adriana Herrera, Cherish Reed, Denise Williams. There's so many.
I know.
I love
We'll
it.
give you a list afterwards.
Cass Newbold, AJ Sass. Like, I could just keep going. There's so many people.
Right.
But so many good people. Ashna's in the audience. Nikki's in the audience. Nadia's an illustrator. She's in the audience. Allie's in the audience. There are so many. And this community, it feels crazy big, but at the same time, there's so many of us in this room right now, and that's bananas to me. And it just feels like at the further you get, the smaller the world gets. And that's really cool. Yeah.
Well, those are all of the questions that I have, and I think all of the questions that the audience has, unless anybody else has anything else that they want to quickly put on a card. It can't be 2 paragraphs long. But otherwise, what I want to say is I am so excited to see what's to come, and I am so ridiculously happy for you. It just warmed my heart to see you have a published book out there that is getting so much love, and that
crazy
deserves the
love.
love that it's getting.
Yes.
And so everyone, if we could give her a huge round of applause for this amazing accomplishment.
Thank y'all.
And thank you, everybody, for coming out.
Yes.
You know, this is my first person event in,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, I don't know how many years, quite frankly. But I wanted to be here for you,
Thank
and
you.
I am so happy that you are getting this opportunity to celebrate your gorgeous book.
Thank you, thank you,
Okay.
thank you. Thank you guys so
Thanks,
much.
everyone. Take care.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much. You're amazing.